Greetings all you movie junkies and entertainment lovers, and welcome to another ranked video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Beverly Hills Cop franchise. Now the Beverly Hills Cop franchise, although turning 40 this year, has not had quite as many entries as a lot of these other franchises that I've covered before, but with the recent release of the newest entry, Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, if I'm ever going to talk about the Beverly Hills Cop movies and rank them all, I thought now would be a better time than ever. And before I continue, as I always point out with my other lists, it's important to remember this is just my personal list of the way that I would rank the Beverly Hills Cop films. So coming in at number 4, we have Beverly Hills Cop 3. Now this is, one case where I think it's pretty much almost going to be unanimous that Beverly Hills Cop 3 is the weakest of the franchise. Few things that are off about this movie. The main problem that I honestly think that this film has is that it just doesn't really feel like a Beverly Hills Cop movie. And it's difficult when you're doing sequels, especially once you get past, 1 or 2, that you're trying to find ways to do kind of a new things with it. You're trying to go in a new direction, introduce some new elements, but at the same time you're trying to keep the same tone, the same feel, the same things that made the previous movies what they are and what made them successful. And so it's always difficult when you're doing sequels to try to kind of get that balance right. And for me, I think Beverly Hills Cop 3 is a perfect example of them straining a little bit too far in a new direction, to the point where it doesn't really even feel like a Beverly Hills Cop movie. If anything, it kind of feels more like it's supposed to be a parody of Beverly Hills Cop rather than an actual sequel. The main thing I think that of course is missing is, not having Taggart. One of the things that made those first 2 movies so strong was that dynamic of, Axel, Rosewood, and Taggart. And so not having John Ashton here definitely hurt it. We do have Hector Alonso here. And the first time I saw this, I actually thought that he was supposed to be Taggart. He's actually, meant to be his own character, who's clearly was meant to be Taggart in the original script. And apparently John Ashton just did not like the script and they just could never quite get on the same page with it. Most of it takes place in Wonderworld, and it doesn't really have the same kind of look and feel of the previous 2 movies either. And I actually personally really like the theme park setting. I actually don't think that was a problem with this movie at all. I really like the Wonderworld setting, and I just think there should be more movies in general that take place in like theme parks and stuff. I think that is, kind of a subgenre of movies that I personally really dig. And because of the setting of Wonderworld, I really want to like this movie. But again, it just doesn't quite work as a Beverly Hills Cop movie. And I think, honestly, maybe this should have just been its own film. Maybe they should have just made this a completely original film. Maybe still have it be with Eddie Murphy, but just not have it be Beverly Hills Cop. Because I think, honestly, that is a big problem with this, is the fact that, it just doesn't work as a Beverly Hills Cop movie. But if you just kind of not think of it as that and enjoy it as its own thing, it still is a lot of fun to me. And it's easily, for me, nowhere near to being Eddie Murphy's worst film. He's done plenty of other films that I think are a lot weaker than this, but it's easily, without a shadow of a doubt, obviously for many reasons, clearly the weakest of all 4 of the films. But for me, I'm still somebody who, enjoys it. Coming in at number 3 is of course the most recent entry, Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. Of course, is coming out about 30 years after the last film, so a lot of time has passed in between the previous movie. And honestly, as far as, reboots go, I think that this is definitely one of the more stronger entries that we've got in more recent years. It does a really solid job capturing the same tone of the previous films, whilst also just kind of slightly going in a bit of a newer direction as well, slightly modernizing things, but still having a lot of those same elements that people really loved about those original 2 movies. Although it might not be on quite the same level as the first 2 films, it definitely, does a really good job of kind of getting the balance right in a way that Beverly Hills Cop 3 kind of struggled to. there is definitely a sense of them kind of playing it safe. It definitely spends a lot of time kind of retreading and rehashing a lot of elements from the first two films. It does introduce some great new elements, one of those elements being, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who is an actor I've always really enjoyed, and I thought, he was great in this film, and his dynamic with, Eddie, I thought worked really well. It's a really, really solid, fun time. So that's Beverly Hills Cop Axel F at number 3. At number 2 is Beverly Hills Cop 2. Now, for a lot of people, they consider this to be the absolute best film of the entire franchise, even more than the first film. And I could totally see why, because this film is just honestly an absolute blast from beginning to end. I may even go as far as to say that I actually think that just when it comes to Eddie Murphy's performance, I think this actually might be his strongest performance of the entire franchise, if not his entire career personally. I think that he is just absolutely on fire in this movie. There are so many great funny moments in this film, and so much of it is just, Eddie Murphy doing his thing. But it definitely, works well. It does a solid job of, kind of taking all those elements that worked really well in the first movie, but also kind of going in its own direction as well. And it's just an absolute blast from beginning to end. It is such a fun movie, and there's so many great moments. I think Judge Reinhold's performance in this is probably my favorite of that I've ever seen of him as well. There's definitely a lot of reasons why I can see why people would put this over the first film. But for me, it's just not quite on the same level. It's probably, honestly, I think might be, Tony Scott's best movie. And honestly, I'm not actually a big fan of a lot of Tony Scott's movies, or at least his, directing style. But here, I think, honestly, I think he did a great job with it. And it almost has kind of a little bit of like a John Carpenter-esque feel to it. Very apparent in the music. Like, there are full on, like, if you listen really closely, they full on, take a few, actual beats out of from, Escape from New York in this soundtrack. And honestly, as somebody who's a big Carpenter fan, I think it works really well. It's a great film, a solid sequel, and yeah, to me, probably Eddie Murphy's best performance of his whole career. And then, of course, at number 1 is obviously the original Beverly Hills Cop. Again, it's a very simple movie compared to a lot of these others, but it's just executed so brilliantly well. And again, it's amazing that this movie honestly is 40 years old now, because it still honestly works so well, especially when it comes to so much of like the comedy elements of it. It's crazy, again, when you watch this one now and you see how young Eddie Murphy was in this, and his performance in this is just so great. Even though I think he's even better in the second film, he's still just so fantastic in this. And the way this is executed, and the way that the plot kind of moves forward, I think is great. And it really is just a solid mix of kind of, action and comedy, and it's really well done. It has probably one of the greatest soundtracks to any movie ever, certainly of the 1980s. I guess the opening, and it's Eddie Murphy, he's hanging out with that truck, and the Pointer Sisters Neutron Dance is playing. You just can't help but have a smile on your face. It's just one of those movies that, no matter what kind of a mood I'm in, if I watch it, I know I'm gonna have a good time, because it's just one of those movies that puts a smile on your face, and it's just so much fun. It's probably one of the greatest action comedies of the 80s, or maybe even honestly probably one of the greatest action comedies of all time. And for me, honestly, still to this day, it probably remains as Eddie Murphy's best movie. Alright guys, there you go. That is the way that I would rank the Beverly Hills Cop franchise. Feel free to drop in the comments down below and let me know how you would rank the Beverly Hills Cop movies. So until next time, be sure to consume as much entertainment as humanly possible, and I will see you in the next video.